Serenbe has been on Frank and Christine Egan's radar for years before they eventually uprooted their busy lives on Long Island and moved all the way down to rural Georgia. However, when you hear their full story, it's not all that surprising that this is where they landed. In addition to running a successful orthodontics practice, Frank and Christine have been lifetime advocates for local food, sustainable living, and a balanced approach to wellness that includes lots of time spent outdoors. In this episode, guest co-host Garni Nygren and I sit down with Frank and Christine to chat about their new practice that opened in Mado, Christine's inspiring approach to health and wellness, and the way that they've embraced all things Serenbe.
Some days we wake up and we can't believe that we did it. Like, we got out of New York and we are now living this dream out in rural Georgia, which is so funny, but, we wouldn't have it any other way.
Frank, Christine, we're so excited to have both of you guys here. We've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while. As you know, we always kick it off with the big old question of what is your Serenbe story? So I would love to hear for our listeners, what's your Serenbe story? How did you guys find us and how did you get here?
First of all, thanks so much for having us. We're so happy to be here in Serenbe and happy to be here on the podcast. The podcast is something that we started listening to before we came down here, and it was fun to learn about strangers and new people and the new place that we were heading to. Then over the years, it got to be people that we would hear about and then meet, and then people that we knew and then hear about, and now we're here. So we've come full circle and it's great to be here. Our Serenbe story started pretty much way back when Serenbe started, and we had read a story about Serenbe and the utopia that Steve Nygren was creating in rural Georgia. And Christine and I were both intrigued by it. At that point, we were deep into our lives in New York, running an orthodontic practice, homeschooling 3 children, just busy with life. And it was something that stayed with us. And over the years, we would either read stories or see stories about Serenbe and how it was growing and changing. And we continued to be interested in it. Finally, in 2018, Christine was in Atlanta for a conference, and she had said, I'm 30 minutes from Serenbe, come down, let's check it out. So when she was finished with the conference, she met me at the airport. We drove out here and basically fell in love. The second time we came down, we bought a house. We weren't ready to move down, but the opportunity to have a connection to Serenbe, to have a place to stay when we visited in the future was irresistible. We did that for a while. One of those visits, we ended up buying a lot to build a custom house, something we always wanted to do, but finally had the opportunity and the plan to do that. Around the same time, we were figuring out our exit from Long Island, selling the practice, selling the house, wrapping up things there. And then finally, in October 22, we got down here full time, and it's been even better than we expected.
This is Garni. I'm happy to be on the podcast this morning, co-hosting with Monica. I will say that 2018 trip, it's always fun for me because sometimes there are people who fight Serenbe. You meet them and they're they fight it a little bit or they don't know yet. I think that Christine and Frank probably remember this, but I met them their first morning here. It was a Saturday morning trail walk where we don't do them anymore post-COVID. But pre-COVID, we would do a Saturday morning 10 a.m. walk of some sort before I had 3 children and had more time on Saturday mornings. But we met after 20 minutes of conversation with Christine at the front of the trail walk. I think I went back and said to somebody on the sales team, these people get it, they understand, and they're definitely going to buy a house. They're going to be here.
Well, Garni played a big part in getting us down here. And part of being down here is people hold a bigger vision for you than you can hold for yourself. And I think you definitely did that for us. It wasn't our vision to have a big townhouse. Our vision was to have a really tiny house here. And then between you and Gil at the real estate office explaining to us how it can be a rental opportunity for us and how we could make money even though we weren't planning on coming down full time and still have a foothold in the community, even though we weren't here full time. And then that evolved into, okay, well, we're going to help you build a house. And we're like, wait, what? I never built a house before. How are we going to do that from New York? And you're like, don't worry, we're going to walk you through it. And then you did. And now we're here.
But you all got it. Like that's a lot of credit to yourselves, because some people come and don't get it. And then if they get it, they can't make it possible. But Serenbe sparkled with you all. It resonated and you made it happen.
Yeah.
And so that's
sometimes we forget that, like that we left this life behind of 27 years of living in the same communities that we grew up in. Frank's orthodontic practice were people that we went to school with and we treated their children. So like we were really embedded in that community. And to pack that all up and come down to rural Georgia was a big deal for us. And some days we wake up and we can't believe that we did it. Like we got out of New York and we are now living this dream out in rural Georgia, which is so funny, but we wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I remember is following you on Instagram because you were friends with our friend Jennifer Walsh. Yes. And so I was like, there's this woman that's moving, but I don't think I've met her. And she's coming. And so I was super excited to like finally, because I think you guys were maybe renting up the street from me for a minute. And so then finally we met on the street, which was great. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned building a house. Tell us a little bit about that process. And you guys have just moved in and you're really excited about it. And I believe is it net zero, or I know you were getting pretty close. So tell us about that.
We affectionately call it the tree house. We had come from a house in New York that was old and that we had renovated. And although we had a lot of plans as far as solar and things like that, with the old house retrofitting, a lot of these newer ideas, especially in New York, was not really feasible. So building a new house, a custom house, really appealed to us, kind of starting with that blank slate, geothermal, solar, no natural gas. These were things that we wanted to do and were able to do in this new house. We love it. It's up in the trees, the views of the trees and that wonderful Georgia sunshine creating electricity for us.
We built the house specifically for the two of us. And it was a very conscious decision as to where to actually put the house on the lot to get maximum sunshine, the pitch of the roof to still maximize the solar energy, how to build a house that was specifically for us that met basic needs without going above and beyond. And, it took us a long time. We worked with Steve and Cecilia and really helped us pare down what it is that we wanted as two people who left a big house, raising 3 kids that would suit us and, fulfill all of our needs. And we have a small swimming pool in the backyard that was really important to us. And again, it was like how to make that need fulfilled with a small footprint and how to still make it geothermal and how not to use natural gas to heat it and how we can tie in with our solar and the swimming pool and how to just do things with the least impact here in Serenbe.
I'll give Christine and Frank big props because we'll always tell people when they're starting to build a custom home that you get in over where you want to spend, no matter what that number is, in 2 ways, right? You make the house too big. You start out saying like, I only need these things. And then somehow you're at double the square footage. And you end up like picking jewels for every room in the house, right? You end up with this like tile in a secondary bathroom that is exorbitantly expensive and like no one ever sees it. So when they started, I was like, listen, if you can actually follow, like give your architects a square footage and tell them you don't want to go past it. Don't let us go past it and pick 3 things to spend money on. Your 3 favorite things of where you're going to spend time in the house. And you all did that.
We did.
Not everybody does it, but you all did it.
Well, we were really smart about the 3 things, the 3 really important items in the house for us. And they might be above average, in price, but we're willing to spend the money on those. And then what other things are we willing to give up so that we could be well within our budget? And we were well within our budget by the time we finished that house.
That's when building a custom home isn't overwhelming at the end, right? When you can stick to those 2 things. Because when you're building, it's like being a kid in the candy shop, right? Where you're like, oh, I want all the candy. I want all the candy in my finishes and selections. So you all did it and it's great. I do want to say, totally switching, I think that you all are the prime, we always have people that will come and are walking on the streets and intrigued by Serenbe and read the story like you all. And then one of their next questions is there going to be anything to do here? Am I going to have any friends? I think you all maybe even asked that question in 2018. Like, we're so intrigued, but if we move to rural Georgia, is anybody here? Is there going to be anybody here that we like? On the other side of that, what would you all say to that? Is there anything to do in Serenbe?
There's all the things to do in Serenbe. I'm like embarrassed to say this, but our kids track us and they're like, what are you doing over there? I see that you're visiting your friends, or like, I see that you're at a party. Like, you are so busy. And I'm like, yeah, we are. We're here for all things Serenbe. That's like a running joke with friends, is like, there's an event, of course we're there. Like Frank and Christine, we are always at all things Serenbe. If there's an art event, we're there. If there's an art showing, we're there. If there's a party, we're there. If there's trivia, we're there. There's lots to do here. And people always say that. And I was like, when we got here, are you sure like we're going to fit into all the things? But you do. You fit into all the things.
Yeah, I feel like it's so great being surrounded by like-minded people. And although we've had an interest in yoga and walking the trails and things like that in New York, we were kind of on our own with it. Our friends really didn't have the same interests. And so being here and having friends that have the same interests is really great. One more thing about the house that I really love is no lawn, no grass. And coming from Long Island, where every house has this sprawling lawn and all this effort and money and time is put into growing grass and cutting grass and removing grass and
no sound pollution,
I was
right?
going to say that the
constantly.
noise.
Yeah, that is
and we're
something
so
that we
used
really enjoy here.
And we're so used to at Serenbe not having, that's one of those things that you get really used to not having the lawnmower noise pollution, to the point where you turn around and you're like, wait, is it quiet here? This is just how it sounds, right? And then you go somewhere else and you're like, what has happened? Like, what is, Saturday at 8 a.m.?
Well, and just to sort of continue that thought of wellness, which I think is sort of what we're talking about from like an aesthetic and from social and all the things, and even your home, one of the things when you were in New York is you wrote a book, and it was The Healthy Girl's Guide to Breast Cancer. So obviously you're a huge advocate for health and looking for wellness in holistic ways, as well as your experience. Are you open to talking to us about that and the book? What lessons learned, and did any of those things make that decision after 27 years to say, you know what, I'm going to do what I want to do?
Yeah, most definitely. So Frank and I both have been in the health and wellness field for 30 plus years. And so a breast cancer diagnosis was really out of left field for me, as I was helping women in our own community live really healthy lives, teaching them how to cook for their families. So being diagnosed was really something that was totally unexpected. And I really started journaling after being diagnosed, and it was a way of keeping people in the loop as to what was going on with me. And when I was diagnosed, Facebook wasn't really a thing. Instagram wasn't even around. So the best way to include everybody in our journey was to blog. And the blog then turned into a book. And it really started out just for me as a healing process, but the book became so much larger than I ever thought it would. And after the book was published, I wound up doing online classes well before online was like this huge thing, with helping women redefine what it meant to be healthy for them, because I was teaching women how to be healthy even though they had cancer. Like, what were those really important things to them that they were doing on a daily basis that made them feel healthy? And it was very moment by moment. It was, what can we do right now to make ourselves feel healthy? And then that kind of grew into a larger women base. And of course, one of those things of making yourself feel healthy was reducing stress and getting connected to the food you eat and walking in your own neighborhood. And of course, all those things were going on in New York, but not at a level that we really embraced it until we got to Serenbe and really walking. And we didn't have a golf cart for about the first 6 months that we lived here. And we were clocking anywhere between like 40 and 50 miles a week, just walking in our neighborhood. And of course, walking up hills, which is very different than being in New York. And of course, the farm. Something really important to us was teaching people the importance of local farm fresh food, organic is best, and explaining to people the importance of eating from your own local farmer as opposed to, shipping food in from California or more than 100 miles from your home. And that was one of the huge benefits to being in Serenbe, was literally walking across the street to our farm. So instead of getting food within 100 miles, we were literally walking across the street to pick up our CSA, which was so huge for us, not only knowing the farmers and knowing the land, but walking across, not even getting in a car to pick up our food. And that's something that we really valued here.
I say that to people all the time. I'm like, you cannot underestimate the beauty and just like privilege, right, that we have to be able to eat food that's grown by someone we know, that's never been in a car, and harvested within like 24 hours of it making it to your home.
Yeah. And now we're even more of that growing process because we compost so much of our food. We walk over with a huge compost. We have a whole bin that we take over like every few days and put it right into the compost. And, you know,
and that's the most rewarding thing,
right?
Of like diverting food and giving it to your own farm and soil and knowing you're getting that back. I think the other really huge thing that we just don't, it's hard to completely like appreciate the walking, right? And I think for so many people, there's just not the ability to live somewhere where you can walk to everything. And I think when we hear walking societally, we think like, oh yeah, because you can, like, you're going to go out and walk and get steps. But one of the things for me, and I think for you all, that's so gratifying about living here is that you literally like walk to your life. I'm walking to yoga. I'm walking to the gym. I'm walking to meet somebody for coffee. I'm walking to my, dentist and orthodontist. You literally can walk to all of it. And when I say to people, like, I don't leave that much, they're like, that sounds crazy. And I'm like, oh, like when you get on the other side of that like statement, you'll understand. It's like something has to be really good to leave because otherwise I'm just going to like walk or golf cart to it.
Well, and I think people think that leaving is leaving your house
Right.
and you get into a car. And so I think that you really have to flip the whole concept of living when you're at Serenbe, that this is beyond this like community development. It is a town that is sort of being built, which then leads to the note that you just said, orthodontist practice. So you left your practice behind, you sold it, I believe, but you started a new one. Like my son goes to you, like everybody seems to go to you in the community. And I'm totally a nerd. And I do kind of want to know about the system you use. I know it's probably like maybe not boring or very interesting to people, but tell us, like, did you know that you were going to start up a practice here? Because I feel like you were doing it a little bit back and forth from New York, but was that unexpected? Or because it's pretty cool that, we can just walk to the orthodontist. I don't have to drive my kids into Atlanta.
Yeah. So when we first came down, I was thinking that coming to Serenbe was something that was in the future, retirement, and I was not ready to retire. I love doing orthodontics. I love teaching orthodontics. And again, Garney's the one who kind of helped us see a different path of starting a new practice here. And so even before we moved down here full time, I started a new practice and we would commute back and forth. Around the time that we had started planning the new house, Dr. Patel had been working on the new dental office in Mado. And it just worked out so nicely to be able to work with her and use that space to start this new practice, orthodontics at Serenbe. And Christine has always been my right-hand person in the practice. And together we had really kind of fine-tuned the orthodontic experience in New York for our patients, coming from a time when braces were the only way to treat patients and evolving through a time now where I don't use braces at all. I only use clear aligners. Having seen over the years the opportunity to treat all the different types of malocclusions, orthodontic problems with clear aligners without the negative consequences of wearing braces, but also a totally different experience for patients. So I feel like in the past, the ends justified the means, and the experience that patients went through was not a good experience, but the beautiful, healthy smile at the end made it worthwhile. But having an opportunity to treat patients with an appliance that's not uncomfortable, that's not going to harm the teeth, it's just a completely different experience and just makes it so much more rewarding as an orthodontist. And then the second piece of the puzzle for us in working with people and improving the experience is the remote checkups. So we use the dental monitoring app and are able to have checkups remotely for our patients every week. And this allows me to track progress more closely. It allows patients to get feedback every week, and they're not having to trudge into the office every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So it's really a win-win. treatment goes faster. Treatment's much more customized to the individual patient. And again, the experience is so great and patients are surprised at how easy it is.
Well, and it's a tool that, I mean, I can't totally explain it, but that's a tool that you give them that goes in their mouth that's attached to the iPhone. And then it takes a picture for you. And then you can provide feedback to move on to the next aligners. I've been like telling people about it. I don't feel like a lot of people know. So maybe we'll change that on Serenbe Stories, but it's super cool.
So Frank is the only orthodontist in the US that is doing clear aligners and remote. Yes. So we were doing that in New York for a good portion of our patients, but here we're 100% clear aligners, and there's no other orthodontist in the surrounding area that is doing anything like we're doing here.
And it's great. I mean, you said your teenage son, which I was a teenager with braces, but also as an adult who had braces, like I have this system so that like we're keeping, my teeth can stay in line so that all of the braces that I had when I was teenagers, I get to maintain as an adult and never have to have like Invisalign or any of the stuff. And you wear it at night. Yep. And it's like done. So you're not having to think about like, oh, I can't drink coffee or I can't do this or somebody's going to see. It's really fantastic.
Or break a bracket. I mean, all of that stuff was just horrifying. So anyway, kudos. So circling back a little bit, you touched on eating food within 100 miles. And so that's something that like, Garni and Serenbe thinks about a lot. And obviously we try and bring it even closer than 100 miles. But when you guys were in New York, you founded or you found and ran the nonprofit, the Long Island Food Challenge. Can you tell us a little bit about the benefits of that? I think it was 100 miles within. And Long Island, if nobody's been, has incredible farms and incredible agriculture. It's a really cool part of New York. But tell us like why, how, I'm assuming a lot of your classes in cooking came out of that nonprofit, but that's a big endeavor to do on top of 3 kids, homeschooling, and a business.
Well, I was just going to say it really started out as like one of those homeschooling things. So I'm telling you, I had to look back. Like this is like when YouTube first got started. So my kids would record me at local farm stands, picking up vegetables, describing what vegetables were. And then we would go home and cook them. And the kids would videotape me and edit it and then put it up on YouTube. So like it was a whole like effort of like, yes.
And there was so many farm stands. We did one or sometimes multiple every weekend through the summer.
And for reference point, how old are your kids now? For anyone listening?
In their 20s.
Yes. Right. But so this was, to your point, this was not, this isn't like 2 years ago.
Oh no, this was like early 2000s.
Yeah.
This is like 2005, 2006, like a very long time ago.
Right. Yeah, you were at the front end of like local agriculture while people like have been into local agriculture for many years. In 2004 and 5, it was not a thing yet at all.
Yeah. And teaching people what the food was and how to prepare it so that it tasted great.
Right.
Besides just something from a can or getting something that you pop in the microwave. This was how to help out your local farmer, how to be in touch with your food, how to get it farm fresh so that it was packed with nutrition and make it taste great.
Do I see a cooking class in your future, Christine? Well, I know you want to just be.
That's part of the benefits of living here in Serenbe is like normalize cooking with friends, normalize going on a walk with friends, normalize walking through a neighborhood and bumping into friends and then wind up having dinner. Like that didn't happen in New York. That was not a thing. And that is one of the huge benefits of living here is you can't walk down the street without running into 5 different people. And then that turns into something else. And you're home like 2 hours later.
Yeah, definitely. My husband will be like, you went to get the mail. Where are you?
There was a beautiful state park, or still is in New York, and beautiful trails, every bit as beautiful as here, but it would be a 10-minute drive. And I would go alone or with Christine or with the kids and hike and, you wouldn't see anyone and then you'd go home. And it's just a completely different experience here.
To be able to walk out your door and walk on a trail.
Yeah, it's that not having to like think about getting in a car, plan getting in a car to drive and park to get out.
And then walk.
And then walk. That's what I always like joke. It's like the people who are going to the gym and try to find the closest parking spot, right? So not everybody has trails out of their own backyard. So a lot of people, you do have to drive to trails, but it changes the experience and changes how frequently you do it.
Yeah. And those are the things that are going to keep us young. Like, I'm serious. Walking. So we live up on a big hill, which is the steepest a street can be in the US. So I've been told. And walking that hill on a daily basis is the thing that's going to keep us young and healthy.
And stairs, right?
Yes.
Like, you all have a primary on the second floor. Steve, my dad, feels this way too. It's like when people come in and say, like, I want a house with everything on one level, I'm like, that's great. You're going to start aging, because like, it's when we're walking up hills and when we're doing stairs is what keeps us young. It's like, we should all be walking stairs and hills as long as we possibly can.
That's right. And honestly, that was a big conscious decision of ours, was to build this house with many stairs.
Right.
And I know a lot of people think we were crazy, but I was like, that is the stuff that's going to keep us young.
Yes.
We're not looking to slow down by any means. We're here to ramp up.
Yes.
So what other things? I feel like somebody told me the other day that you do sound baths.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's
Okay.
been on the down low.
Sorry,
No.
I'm outing you.
So a sound bowl healing, which of course, again, is in that whole health and wellness community of how can we unload some stress? How do we breathe deep within our body? How do we slow down? And sound bowl healings have definitely played a role in maintaining lower stress levels. And I have been doing sound bowl healings for people within the community. Yeah, privately so far. I mean, we've done them in the yoga studios, at our house, at people's houses. But yeah, I'm open to whatever unfolds.
Okay, good. And so when you do, just for the listener, when you do a one-on-one, what does that look like? Because that's sort of a different thing, right?
Yeah, so these are Tibetan bowls, which the Tibetan bowls can actually be placed on the body and then played. So the vibration that the bowl then resonates within your body. And yeah, it creates quite an amazing feeling. And yeah.
I need to do this, Monica.
No, I was just,
I know.
I was
how
just
many
thinking,
people?
like,
How many people can
I
be
wanna
in a
book one,
private
yeah.
to have sound bowls on your body? Is
So
it one person or two people?
Well, we
What's
just
the
did
limit?
a class
Okay.
of, I believe there were 12 women. And so we did the sound bowl healing, and that everybody had a bowl that was
Okay.
placed on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 12 people. Okay.
No, I think it's interesting. So I remember, so we all know Jenny Mathis. We interviewed Gil the other day, but Jenny is an amazing person and she teaches yoga, and one of the types is aerial. And I don't do it often enough. You almost can't get into her class. But when I have done it, I'm crying by the end. And I don't know what it is. It's like, I don't know if it's the inversions or just doing something different, but it's like a kind of a magical thing. And I don't do enough of that for myself. And so that's, as I'm thinking here, it's a good thing to sort of, I don't know if it's a vulnerability, but have that moment
I
to sort of open yourself.
I think it's like you said, it's doing something that you don't normally do. I think that it's empowering. You feel really strong when you're in that aerial class. And again, these are all things that are available here in Serenbe. We just need to take advantage of them all.
Well, and that's it. I tell myself that right now. Take advantage of them, Monica. So as we're starting to wrap up, we always ask the question, if a friend or somebody who has never been to Serenbe comes, you guys have been here, you've experienced all the things. What is the one thing? And you guys can each maybe have your own thing, possibly. What are those things here? Maybe we'll start with Frank.
Sure. So when we were commuting every month, coming down here for just a few days and then going back to New York, the trips were usually pretty hectic, just a few days. And I was working one of those days and, maybe checking on the house progress. But one of the things we loved to do is we would get off the plane, drive here, have lunch at Halsa, and then hang in the hammocks across from Halsa for anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple of hours sometimes, just breathing and staring up at the sky and the trees and just getting in touch with that Serenbe feeling. So
that's a good one. Nobody has given that one out yet. So they're sort of a little deep in the woods across the street from Halsa. Yeah. And Christine?
Well, you're going to laugh at me when I say this, but I really, really mean this. I say to anybody that comes down here is to spend time with the real estate team. And I mean that because they're the ones that can take you through neighborhood and neighborhood and kind of give you the lay of the land of what is here. And it's either going to resonate with you and then you're like all in on Serenbe, or you'll realize this is a place for me to visit, not live. And I mean that, like, they're the best ones to go around, learn about each of our communities here, what is coming down the road and what Serenbe has to offer. So if you could even spend an hour with someone from the real estate team, and then you have the lay of the land, and then you can go back and revisit each community and maybe learn the little trails that take you from point A to point B instead of just taking the road. That's my suggestion to someone who's coming to Serenbe.
I love both of those because they identify or like hone into that Serenbe really can't be understood on the surface. You walk in, like how we're used to walking into a place, like you arrive and you're on the sidewalk or the street and you're kind of like, what's here? In a lot of places, the surface is the thing, right? We arrive at a lot of places in the United States and what we see is what we get. And Serenbe is the exact opposite, right? Like you arrive and it has not unveiled itself yet. And when you dig in and start to like find all of the layers, it then begins to present itself. Serenbe present itself as like, this is what's here. And it's things like the hammock. We always say to people, Serenbe has probably at this point, like 150 to 200 discoverable moments. And there's no sign and there's no map. The point of life and the point of Serenbe is to wander and meander and find new trails and new places and new turns. And in those new discoveries, you find new things like a bench or a hammock.
Yeah. We did so much research before we came down here and we still didn't get it. And it wasn't until our time with someone from the real estate office. And back then it was everybody from the real estate office because it was 2018. That's how we really learned what Serenbe was and got to, get into different parts of the community to really figure out where it was that we really felt more at home. But had we not spent the time with you guys in the real estate development team, we would have never.
And that's gracious, Christine. It's spending the time with the real estate team and also spending time here. Whenever someone asks, like, how do I get to know these things? I'll always say, book 3 nights or book a month. And at the end of the month, you will have begun to dig in. And after like 5 nights or a month here, you'll know, right? You'll know that if like it's something that you want to opt into or if it's just a place you want to visit. And we say that all the time. Like Serenbe is here for all of it. We're here for the person who discovers us as a great place to bring your kids for the day or to move for a lifetime from across like the country.
And I am all in on that. And I believe that. And I think that is why there is such a high vibration here is because everybody that lives here wants to be here. And if you don't want to be here, they sort themselves out. Yeah. Yes.
And no judgment.
And no judgment.
When somebody doesn't want to be here, we're like, that's great. Like, this isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
Nothing in life should be for everybody. I always say, if you're trying to do something that's for everyone, you're going to create something that's for no one.
Yeah.
Right.
And people back home are like, wait, this community is still being built. But there is something to being in a community that is being created. Like there is always creation going on. The same lot doesn't look the same way on a daily basis. Something is always changing. And if you can lean into that creative piece, then you get Serenbe.
Yeah. And I think Serenbe is also a place that people don't always understand, but like Serenbe wants people to be part of the creation. Serenbe evolves every day because it's who has showed up that actively wants to participate, right? And I think that active is something that you all are doing. And I always say to someone, like, if you're coming to Serenbe expecting to throw a ball at somebody on the development team, right, to catch and do something for you, expect for it to be thrown back to you with full force to say, if you want that to happen, go do it. Like, we're not here to be your cruise ship director, but we are here to be a place to enable creativity and doers and where you can really participate in your life.
I just want to say one other thing about real estate. When we came down, the whole team treated us like friends and was so welcoming. And it was a very pleasant experience. But coming from New York, I was kind of skeptical. And I said, yeah, this is great. It's a very clever sales technique. But I will say, without exception, all of those people are still our friends. And it's really been a great experience getting to know all of them. And amazingly, it was all sincere. We're so grateful.
It's that Southern hospitality, right? I had that in reverse. I went to growing up in Atlanta and going to college in upstate New York. When I got to upstate New York, I was like, oh, no, like there's a difference between the South and the Northeast, right? In terms of that. So yes, when you come from the Northeast, sometimes that Southern hospitality that is genuine, like,
I know now.
The Northeasterners take us like who are you smiling and saying hi to me and using the word y'all?
Either way, I enjoyed it, but yes, it did turn out to be sincere.
And I'll also note, this is not a plant to have like a, we love the real estate team moment. Like that's really lovely and organic and everything. So this was lovely. It's so fun to sit and do these. Like I know you guys, but then I feel like I learned so much every time we interview anybody. So thank you so much for being with us, Garni. Thank you for co-hosting today. And, we'll look forward to seeing you guys out on the trails, I guess.
Sharing our Serenbe story with y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.